Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're taking a piece of universally known career advice and running it through a totally different kind of analytical model. We're looking at that famous mantra, do what you love, the money will follow, but we're going to view it strictly through the lens of an actuarial and risk professional. We're not just looking at this quote to feel warm and fuzzy. We genuinely want to know if passion is a viable, mathematically sound strategy for long-term value creation. Let's dive right in and see if this popular ideal actually holds up to a rigorous risk assessment. Right, so do what you love, the money will follow. On the surface, I know it sounds like an idealistic bumper sticker, but let's frame this as the ultimate career hypothesis. I mean, is this just a comforting little saying, or is there an actual verifiable, risk-adjusted truth behind it? We're going to break down the mechanics of this exact statement to see if it truly functions as a rock-solid strategy for long-term career stability. Let's start by looking at the core mantra, focusing on these specific 8 words of advice. Which brings us right into the action phase, essentially setting up the premise for the whole idea. Do what you love. Now, from a strictly risk management perspective, this isn't about chasing fleeting day-to-day positive emotions or just having a blast at the office. It's about calculating exactly what you need to survive a 30-year career timeline. If you look at professional trajectories, the absolute highest statistical risk to any worker is burnout. It's that breaking point where the cost of continuing literally exceeds your mental or physical capacity to do so. Passion, then, isn't just a nice-to-have. It's a strategic input. It gives you the necessary stamina to endure decades of calculated risk without defaulting or abandoning the market altogether. Once that's locked in, we move to the promised consequence or the reward. The money will follow. In financial modeling, we'd actually call this a lagging indicator. It absolutely does not happen immediately, and honestly, expecting it to is a massive flaw in how people model their careers. But think of an exponential growth curve. Sustained input, that stamina we literally just talked about, eventually triggers a critical inflection point. The money here isn't your daily wage or your entry-level salary. We're talking about compounding career value that arrives sequentially, steadily trailing behind your initial massive investment of passion and effort. And when you put these two concepts side by side, it's pretty clear we're looking at a beautifully balanced equation of inputs and outputs. Over on the left side of the ledger, you've got your strategic input, sustained, passion-driven effort deployed over a very long time horizon. Over on the right side, you've got the resulting dividend, financial gain and stability. We are essentially calculating the return on your invested career capital. And the whole framework relies on one absolutely crucial understanding. The left side must be fully funded and actively managed before the right side pays out a single dime. So let's explore the implied causality, basically looking at how we connect these two halves. If we treat this maxim as a strict causal model, we can start mapping out the data matrices and the operational dependencies. Step 1 is our independent variable, strategic passion. Step 2 is our dependent variable, profit. For any risk professional analyzing the sequence, Step 1 has to be fully realized and maintained before Step 2 can even be accurately modeled. You literally cannot negotiate this sequence. The overall health and realization of that dependent variable relies entirely on the stability and presence of Step 1. Then we hit this absolute powerhouse of a word, will. No, in the realistic world of risk assessment, absolute guarantees basically don't exist, right? Everything has a margin of error. But here, this single word represents an incredibly high confidence probability. The underlying model is essentially suggesting that if you successfully mitigate the risk of quitting by genuinely loving the work, the probability of achieving financial success completely stops being a game of random chance. Instead, through the sheer unstoppable force of longevity and compounded skill, it approaches statistical inevitability. Which naturally brings us to a huge question. Is will follow an absolute guarantee? I mean, if we run the numbers and completely stress test the model, does passion always equal profit? Every data analyst and actuary out there knows there are always outliers, but we have to ask ourselves if the core equation is actually robust enough to base your life's work on. Let's bring it all together for our final takeaway and look at the complete picture. So, do what you love, the money will follow. Look, over a short-term horizon, passion might not immediately equal profit. There's definitely a delay. But when you map this out over a 10, 20, or even 30-year timeline, passion acts as the ultimate career risk mitigator. It is the core operational advantage that allows you to just stay in the game long enough for those compounding returns to actually take effect. So as we wrap up this explainer and you map out your own professional trajectory, I want you to ask yourself, how are you currently hedging your long-term career risks, and is passion actively part of your mitigation strategy?